Good morning, everybody. It is now 10 a.m. and I am calling the meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to designate Chair of the Board Kenan Lilly Wooten to serve as the presiding officer pro tem for today's Executive Committee meeting. Kenan is physically present at the Law Center. If there is no objection, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Kenan.
Good morning officially, everybody. It's 10 a.m. and I'd like to welcome you all to the meeting. Thank you, President Tisdale, for turning it over to me today to preside in your absence. I'll do my very best to make you proud. With our agenda posting, we invited members of the public to view a broadcast of the Executive Committee meeting, which is live at www.youtube.com/State Bar of Texas. We also provided instructions on how to sign up to speak at today's meeting. Signups to speak remotely were available until 5 p.m. Central yesterday. Any members of the public who wish to speak will speak under agenda item 3 today. And those members of the public who are joining us remotely will remain in the Zoom waiting room until it's their turn to speak. Please note that this meeting will be recorded and the recording will be made available to the public. Executive Director Trey Apfel will now call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Baruch.
Here.
Director Benesh.
Here.
Director Bullard.
Here.
Director Cantu.
Here.
Director Clark has an excused absence. Director Gibson.
Here.
Director Harrison.
Here.
Director Huddleston.
Here.
Director Kroger has an excused absence. Senior Justice Learman has an excused absence there in oral arguments this morning. Director McDonald.
Here.
Director Naylor.
Here.
Director Pratt.
Here.
Director Ritter has an excused absence. Director Smith.
Here.
Director Tisdale.
Here.
Director Toby.
Here.
Director Wooten.
Here.
Justice Young has an excused absence. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much for that. All right, at this time, we are going to welcome any members of the public who have signed up to speak. It's my understanding that we did not have anyone sign up by 5 p.m. yesterday and that we do not have anybody here to speak. Is that correct? Okay, with that, the public comment period is closed. During the remainder of the meeting, if there are board members or staff who wish to speak, please approach the podium and I will let you know when it's your turn to speak, with the exception, of course, of President Tisdale, who is joining us via Zoom today. At this time, we are going to hear a report from President Tisdale. I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to catch you up briefly on what I have been up to. I've attended several gatherings and meetings and spoken at several meetings, including the ABA mid-year meeting, the NCBP mid-year meeting. I spoke to the First Judicial District Bar Association, attended the Texas Access to Justice Committee meeting. I attended the Council of Chairs meeting, the AI Summit that was held there at the bar building, the Leadership SBOT, the Houston Bar Foundation annual luncheon, the National Bar Association mid-year meeting gala. I spoke to the Rusk County Bar, and I attended the Texas Bar of Legal Specialization induction ceremony. So that's just a sprinkling of what I've been up to. Let me kind of catch you up on what's been happening on some of what's been happening at the bar. I told you earlier about my goal to get the vacation letters for attorneys to be easier for us to use. And the subcommittee of the Law Practice Management has been working to identify these issues and considerations relevant to vacation notices and pending court matters. The subcommittee also met with several district judges to get their insight and input. The subcommittee has submitted an interim memorandum outlining the issues that they have identified. They found there is a significant variation across the state in how vacation letters are handled in different courts. Many large counties and some smaller counties have local rules governing these vacation letters, and there's variation among these local rules. There's also a variation among different courts and between different types of practice. Some courts have already established an online system to deal with vacation letters, while other courts have no set guidelines and handle vacation letters more informally. Additionally, the rules are not always consistently applied. The subcommittee's research will be helpful in finding ways to make filing vacation letters more efficient. I am excited to report to you today, though, that the Office of Court Administration is working on adding vacation letters to their system, and I look forward to updating you on their progress on this. Next, you all know about my initiative on attorney well-being. And as we all know, the increasing demands and pressures of our profession have made it critical for lawyers to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our mental health and maintain our fitness to provide the services that our clients need. Our TLAP program does an amazing job in this area. And one of my goals as president has been to help the State Bar offer additional well-being benefits to supplement TLAP's work. I am so happy to report that on April the 10th, the Insurance Member Benefits Committee will meet to discuss a potential new member benefit regarding online mental health therapy services for lawyers in need. We are talking with a well-known online therapy provider that has partnerships with employers, associations, universities, health plans, employee assistance programs, government agencies, and nonprofit groups across the country. The benefit for Texas lawyers could include a discount on therapy sessions or even free therapy for a limited time. This will directly improve legal services by getting lawyers the help they need to maintain their fitness to practice. I plan to report more details at the April board meeting after the Insurance and Member Benefits Subcommittee has a chance to review the proposal. Are there any comments from directors?
All right, directors, that takes us to agenda item 5B, which is an action item, and for that reason, I will cover it on President Tisdale's behalf. This time, we're going to consider and discuss approval of the minutes of the January 9, 2024 Executive Committee meeting. Do you need a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Director Toby has moved to approve. Is there a second? Director Naylor has seconded. Any discussion? All directors in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay. Thank you very much. That takes us to agenda item 5C. And with that, President Tisdale, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to update you on the at-large director appointment. As you all know, there are 4 at-large director positions on the State Bar Board. And at the annual meeting this June, the term will expire for one of the positions. Kelly Ann Clark will be ending, and board policy spells out the process to fill the position. December 1st was the deadline to submit nominations for at-large director of the State Bar. This year, we received 7 nominations for consideration. The ad hoc committee to select at-large directors reviewed the nominations, conducted interviews, and submitted 2 nominees for my consideration. I conducted my own in-person interviews of the 2 nominees. They were both incredible candidates with tremendous experience and volunteer service. It was a very difficult decision, to be honest with you, but I was so glad that we had 2 amazing individuals to consider. I have selected Karen Locke of Louisville. She is a graduate of Baylor Law School. She serves as the Regional Vice President and General Counsel at TIAA Financial Services and works on corporate regulatory matters, government relations, compliance, and policy issues. Karen has an impressive resume of service in the legal profession and community, including serving on a local grievance committee, chair of the Texas Bar College, president of the Texas Asian American Bar Association, and serving on the boards of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum and Texas Women's Foundation, just to name a few. This appointment will be presented to the board for consideration at the April meeting. The term for the position begins at the annual meeting. I really want to thank all of the members of the committee for their great work on the selection process. It is chaired by our own Kelly Ann Clark, and its members are Noel Hicks, Rudy Mateer, Laura Pratt, and Radhathia Garajan. Are there any comments from the directors?
Seeing no comments from directors, that takes us to agenda item 5D. President Tisdale, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to update you now on the AI Summit. The Task Force for Responsible AI in the Law held a summit in Austin at the Law Center on February 26th. I attended that summit along with Executive Director Apfel. Members of the task force moderated sessions on several issues identified by the task force as important to lawyers in addressing the risks and opportunities presented by generative AI. Topics included ethical use of AI, addressing AI through legal education, cybersecurity and privacy concerns, the use of AI in the courtroom, and AI and access to justice. The task force invited stakeholders from across the legal community to attend the discussion. The group of approximately 40 attendees included our Supreme Court liaison, Senior Justice Lehrman. The discussion included consideration of the preliminary recommendations made by the task force in their preliminary report. The task force will be compiling their recommendations and a report on the summit for the board's April meeting. One recommendation that arose from the work of the AI task force and the discussion at the AI summit was to request an opinion from the Professional Ethics Committee on the use of generative AI in the legal context. Last week, the trail chair, John Browning, sent a request for an ethics opinion to the Professional Ethics Committee, asking for ethical guidance for Texas lawyers on the responsible use of AI in their practice. The request asked for guidance on applying the existing rules to the use of AI, including the lawyer's duty to provide competent representation or tech competence, the duty of confidentiality, the duty to safeguard client communications and property, the duty of supervision both to other lawyers and to non-lawyer or virtual assistants, the duty of candor to the tribunal, and the duty to charge a reasonable fee. We have not received a response from the Professional Ethics Committee yet, but I will report to the board when we do receive a response. Again, are there any comments from directors?
Thank you very much, President Tisdale. Seeing no comments from directors at this time, we are going to have a report from Executive Director Athol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the committee.
Morning.
We're going to start off with an update on our upcoming board meeting events. We're looking forward to Galveston next month for our board meeting there. And while there, we will host a free in-person CLE, as we always do at our board meetings on April 18th for solo and small firm practitioners. I want to thank in advance President Tisdale, Stephen Naylor, Cade Browning, Robert Toby, and Chris Ritter for agreeing to speak at this event. Attendees will receive 2.5 hours of CLE credit. Registration is open now on the Texas Bar CLE website, and remember, the price is right. Moving forward to our 2024 annual meeting, we continue to prepare for our meeting and conference that is scheduled for June 2021 at the Hilton Anatole in Dallas. As I mentioned at the January board meeting, our keynote speakers are Camille Vasquez, Professor David Renardo, and Fifth Circuit Judge Irma Carrillo Ramirez. The annual meeting committee is hard at work raising funds to cover the cost of the conference. And if you are interested in sponsorships, please let us know. Also, planning is underway for this year's Local Bar Leaders Conference. This will take place July 25-26 at the Westin Galleria in Houston. This will be preceded by our biennial board retreat on July 24th, and that will be a working session for the board on strategic planning and other related issues. And as you know, our Local Bar Leaders Conference is a perfect event that brings together local and specialty bar leaders, young lawyer affiliate leaders, and access to justice delegates from across Texas to share information and ideas to help them better serve their members. The conference is one way that the State Bar meets its statutory purpose of encouraging the activities of local bar associations. And then finally, I want to update you on the State Bar's free legal resources program. Our Public Affairs Department manages a library of free legal resources produced by the Texas Young Lawyers Association of the State Bar. Thank you, President Pratt. The resources are provided as a public service and designed to educate the public on the legal profession and Texas law, although they are not intended as legal advice, and readers are advised to consult a lawyer. The catalog of titles includes publications targeted to attorneys. Combined, it constitutes more than 130 pamphlets, videos, and web-based projects on topics ranging from when to obtain a will, pursuing an uncontested divorce, enumerating tenants' rights, and understanding special education laws in Texas, among others. Free legal resources for the public can be found at texasbar.com/resources. Resources aimed at attorneys are found at tyla.org/resources. The titles are requested by and distributed free of charge to individuals, law firms, courts, and law-related organizations throughout the state. After the Boudreaux decision in November, we temporarily took down the entire free legal resources library so that each title could be reviewed for compliance. This was a massive undertaking. But thanks to the great work of our staff and our TYLA leadership, I'm pleased to say that the library is now back online and available to lawyers and the public. And I want to thank President Pratt for her leadership in this area, and also thank our Public Affairs Department staff, Rebecca Johnson and Claire McDaniel, along with our in-house legal counsel, Chris Ritter, Amanda Engel, and Ian Stuslaw for their work on this project. Well done, y'all. Madam Chair, that completes my report.
Thank you very much. Any comments about that report? All right, at this time, we are going to go to agenda item 5E. This is an update on the Building Planning Special Committee pertaining to 1415 Lavaca. We have Sylvia Barone-Defer. I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this morning about this really exciting project. You may recall that in January, the Lawrence Group submitted their initial estimate for the renovation of the building to us, which was listed as $14.2 million. This was their initial architectural estimate. But now that the construction manager at risk, the CMAR, Rogers O'Brien, is on board, we will start seeing more precise estimates. Rogers O'Brien has reviewed the schematic design put together by the Lawrence Group, and based upon those designs and their initial contractor bids, they came up with their first cost estimate. The estimated total is $18.1 million, which is a bit higher than the first estimate we received from the Lawrence Group, which is due mostly to inflation. However, of this $18.1 million, about $1.3 million are additional contingencies that we set aside in case we make changes to the design or in case there are unexpected construction-related adjustments that need to be made, and such as just increases in price of materials. So the true total cost estimate right now is $16.2 million with contingencies on top of that. The estimate does fall in line with what we were originally expecting, and we anticipate these costs to continue to increase until the construction is started. The estimate does not include furniture and fixtures, and there will be a separate process for the selection and procurement of all of the furniture that is needed for the building. We'll use an RFP process so we get estimates on pricing from various vendors and are able to select good value pricing. This estimate that we have now is very detailed. It contains estimates of all aspects of construction and materials. We will see 2 more estimates from Rogers O'Brien before we begin, as more architectural plans are completed. We'll see another estimate once the architect completes the design development plans, and then once the construction documents are completed. Rogers O'Brien will give us what is called a guaranteed maximum price. You all may remember that that is the reason we selected the construction manager at risk delivery method, because you get a guaranteed maximum price, which protects the bar from cost overruns. We won't ask them to give us that final estimate until we have a good handle on when we want the construction to actually start. And that's going to be driven by our fundraising efforts. So the sooner we get started with the fundraising and the sooner we raise that money, the better. With regard to the interior design of the building, we have a couple of other exciting developments to report on. Rogers O'Brien has done some preliminary investigative work on the interior ceiling of the historical building. The wood in the ceiling is believed to be the original cedar wood from the building, and it appears to be in really great shape. They will do more analysis of this, but there's a possibility that we'll open up this whole interior ceiling area so that the wood can be seen. It will really add to the historical feeling of the building, and we're very excited about the potential possibility of being able to feature an architectural historic feature to the building. The staff has been meeting with the interior design consultants to look at interior finishes and materials. They're looking at things such as the flooring, walls, ceilings, and color patterns. This is a work in progress, but staff hopes to have this task finished by June. The staff is looking at other important elements of the building design as well. They've met with a security consultant to identify the optimum places for cameras and the use of badges in various parts of the building. We will want to have a security system that ties to the existing security system at the Law Center, and we will likely look for a new system that can help us monitor security for the whole campus. Staff will also be working with the landscape designer to give us ideas for designing the west side of the Law Center. We'll want to tie the landscaping in that area to the landscaping on the east side of the 1415 Lavaca building so that we can have the campus feel that we all wanted with regard to tying the two buildings together. And two final notes about design. We're going to be installing air walls to split the second floor main conference room to give us more meeting space room. And we're also going to do the same for the board meeting room on the third floor. This will give us more options and flexibility with regard to the use of those spaces. Additionally, the staff has continued working with our fundraising consultant, FBC Generosity Experts, to put together a fundraising plan. There are many steps necessary to develop and implement a comprehensive capital campaign plan, and we'll have more information about this in the future. In terms of scheduling, the staff will continue to work on interior design, and the architect group is working on design development and will begin the construction documents after that. We'll give an update with regard to these issues at the board meeting, and the action item will be asking the board to give us authorization to continue moving forward with the design and construction planning. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments about that report? Well, that takes us to the next report, which is mine. So I'll stay standing here. This will be pretty quick. I'm just going to cover a few different topics. One, community engagement. Again, as you all know, I set out as chair with a goal to have community engagement opportunities for our board members at each of the board meetings that we have. For anybody who wants to participate, this is entirely voluntary. You all have just been amazing in how you've stepped up to donate books and stuffed animals for children moving through the court systems in those two areas we've been in to date during this bar year. At the next board meeting, we'll have another book donation opportunity, this time geared toward Galveston County. More details will come to you via email, most likely from Jennifer Reams in the near future on that particular community engagement opportunity. The next thing I'll talk about is just board communication. As you know, we all have an obligation as directors to keep members of the bar informed in our respective areas where we practice. And many directors have already updated the leadership on their efforts to educate people about the upcoming referendum on the proposed amendments to the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct. That's wonderful. We encourage more people to do that. Of course, we also have webcasts designed to educate members of the bar about the referendum. As a reminder, we also have the 2 CLE accredited programs that are already prepared for us and are available to us through Board Effect. We have one that's 1 hour in duration, covering all sorts of things about state bar operations. We have another one that's shorter, just 1/2 hour, and that's an update primarily covering member benefits. I do want to say that it's so important to let people know about those benefits, because I think many people don't know what the bar can do for them, and the more we can communicate that, the better. The final thing I want to touch on is the chair election that's coming up at the April board meeting. It's hard to believe this year has just zoomed by because time flies when you're having fun. So at the next board meeting, April board meeting, we'll be voting to elect the 2024-2025 chair of the board. As you all know, we have two excellent candidates. We have Director Elizabeth or Liz Cantu and Director Paul Stafford. There will be more information about how to vote. It's good for all of us to get there early at the next meeting, at least 30 minutes in advance, to make sure we know we have everything set up through Board of Ed to vote. So just a heads up on that front. Any comments from you all about that report? Okay, that takes us to item 7 on the agenda, which is a report from our president-elect, Steve Finish.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, 3 months to go. These past few months have certainly flown a lot more rapidly than this time last year, but I'm excited about what lies ahead. Like President Tisdale, it has been a busy few months since our board's last quarterly meeting. Like President Tisdale, I've attended a number of bar-related and law-related events around the state and then outside the state, not nearly so many as President Tisdale has attended. And I will not bother you to or take time up to list any of the events I've attended. President Tisdale already identified a few of them. One in particular I did want to mention is the most recent one, and that is last week, Executive Director Epfel and I were privileged to be able to attend the Bar Leadership Institute in Chicago, Illinois. Which is an annual program, always occurs in Chicago, specifically tailored to the presidents-elect and the executive directors of the state bars and local bars throughout the United States. And it was a wonderful opportunity, not only to fellowship with our counterparts there, but just a number of wonderful classes and seminars and discussions to hone our skills in preparation for each of us taking the helm in our respective positions. And I did want to commend the Dallas Bar Association, who sent a leadership team to the BLI in Chicago. Also, if you've never seen the river dyed green for St. Patty's Day and witnessed the St. Patrick's Day parade, I put that on your bucket list. It was a nice thing that it coincided. All right, let's talk a little bit about the budget. And I want to go ahead and provide an update on the proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25. That proposed budget has not changed since the presentation during the January board meeting. And your packets all include a copy of the proposed budget as it was published in the March issue of the Texas Bar Journal. The State Bar's Our Finances webpage includes a detailed report on the proposed budget for 24-25, and that document includes a summary of each individual budget of the State Bar and a breakdown of the revenues and expenditures for each of those budgets. A public hearing on that particular proposed budget, the State Bar's fiscal 24-25 budget, was held just this morning at 9 a.m. here at the Texas Law Center. No members of the public attended and no comments were offered. A motion will be made during the April board meeting to obtain board approval to present the proposed budget to the Supreme Court. And then pending the board's approval, a meeting will be held with the Supreme Court on May 6th. I'd like to talk a little bit about the State Bar's financial trends and also some potential and prospective dues increases. The Budget Committee has been hard at work reviewing the most up-to-date financial trends and projections of the State Bar. The committee met on February 6th and reviewed detailed trends, projections, and other financial data as presented by our executive director and by our chief financial officers. And I have really 5 key financial points that the Budget Committee considered at that meeting and has been considering since then. Number 1, the State Bar has not raised dues since 1991, which was 33 years ago. Looking around the table, I'm one of the few lawyers here who is actually practicing law the last time that the State Bar raised dues. In fact, my lawyer son was born that year. And kind of incredibly, the purchasing power of the $235 membership dues in today's dollars is approximately $96.64. The second thing that we considered is that the 10-year average rate of inflation is 2.7%, with the last 3 years really hitting record numbers of 4.1% up to 8% in 2022. The third thing that we considered is that the proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25 was scrutinized by the Budget Committee and the State Bar staff, and in that budget, ongoing operating expenditures exceeded projected revenue by $2,194,260, which is an increase of the budgeted deficit by an amount of $645,920 from the current adopted budget. The fourth thing we looked at is that while the State Bar has set aside funds to cover the projected deficit, those reserves are estimated to cover only the next 2 to 3 years of operations. Then the fifth thing we looked at is that the Finance Division's current budget projections include a projected budget deficit of $6 million by fiscal year 2030 if expenditures grow at 2.5% annually, which is slightly less than the 10-year average inflation rate. So, having considered all of those things, and to address the long-term financial needs of the State Bar, the Budget Committee voted on February 6 to recommend that the board approve a 10% dues increase, which would take effect during the fiscal year of 25-26, that budget cycle. The proposed new dues rate per member are included in your packet with a 10% dues increase. An active member licensed at least 5 years would pay $258 instead of $235, which is a $23 increase. However, the State Bar is projected to continue to report deficit budgets until a larger dues increase is obtained beyond the 10% increase. So the Budget Committee met again on March 19th to develop a strategy and a timeline for making a recommendation to the board. And here are some of the key takeaways from that meeting on March 19th. Number one, the Texas Government Code allows for the State Bar's Board of Directors and Supreme Court to raise dues by 10% every 6 years without a vote from the membership. If an additional dues increase is needed, however, a referendum must be passed by members of the State Bar and approved by the board and by the Supreme Court. Secondly, if the State Bar raises dues by 10% every 6 years, that amount would still not be sufficient to meet the long-term needs of the bar, since it would not keep pace with the inflation rate of about 16% during that same time period. Number three, the Budget Committee estimated that the State Bar needs about a 28% increase in dues, or a $65 increase in the maximum dues rate by fiscal year 26-27 to address our long-term needs as a bar. This would bring dues for an active attorney licensed at least 5 years to $300 annually. So, if I can turn the page, we have no action items to bring to you today, but I did want to let you know that the Budget Committee is going to recommend to the board that next year's Budget Committee take the following steps. That was no reference to the fact that I won't be chairing it. Thank you, Ken and Wooten, for that observation. 3 things: to review the updated financial trends and projections after the 10% dues increase, if approved. Second, to review and consider the long-term plan for addressing the State Bar's budgetary needs as developed by the Budget Committee. And number 3, finally, to make a recommendation to the board on the amount, timing, and necessity of a dues referendum. Thus endeth my report, Chair Wooten. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for that report. Any comments from directors? Seeing none, we are now going to move on to agenda item 8, which is a report from our immediate past president, Laura Gibson.
Thank you, Chair Wooten. As immediate past president, my responsibilities are more limited. And you've heard all the hard work going on by our president and our incoming president. I have continued to focus on succession planning so that our solo practitioner lawyers know how important it is to designate a custodian for the purpose of having someone to return that person's files, client files, to the client or to another lawyer of their choosing. We continue to have people who are dying, becoming disabled, disappearing, or ceasing to practice law, and they haven't made any preparations for what happens in that event. I'm really happy that I have the opportunity to present on April 5 to the Center for the Judiciary in Texas, along with Greg Sampson, who is the co-chair of the Law Practice Management Committee, Dean Schaefer, who is the Succession Planning Administrator for the State Bar of Texas, and Judge Jerry Simoneau, who is the presiding judge of Probate Court Number 1 in Harris County. We'll be visiting again tomorrow for the second time to plan our presentation, and it's our hope that by reaching all of the judges in the state of Texas, that those judges can talk to lawyers who appear before them and stress the importance, especially in the probate court setting. We're like the cobbler whose children have no shoes, because people are in probate court talking about the importance of planning ahead, and our lawyers, many of whom in the probate setting are solo practitioners, need to do the same. And as we've said before, you can designate your custodian attorney in less time than you can check in to get your boarding pass for a Southwest Airlines flight. So we have no excuse. If you're a solo practitioner, please take the time to do this. And if all of the directors would continue to stress the importance of this initiative to your members, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any comments from directors about that report? Seeing none, we are going to move on to agenda item 9. And at this time, we're going to have a report from immediate past chair Chad Baruch on behalf of the Nominations and Elections Subcommittee.
Thank you, Chair Wooten. Good morning, everyone. Two things really to talk about today. The first is just the upcoming election. There will be one. Everything is moving apace. We're in good shape. Candidates have been out working hard. There will be 2 videos and 2 written messages going out from the State Bar to the membership in upcoming weeks. The video will be distributed by email and posted on YouTube. The first one will be March 28th. Second one is April 17. Written messages sent by email on April 11 and April 25. Those will also be shared on social media and the bar's site. There will be a candidate forum on March 26, which Rocky will host. I think everybody knows Rocky. There will be information on the candidates in the April issue of the Bar Journal and an April episode of the State Bar of Texas podcast, as well as a number of other emails and communications. Please do everything you can think of to do in your respective areas to promote voting and help us increase turnout as much as we possibly can. There are 10 district director positions up for election and no contested races this year. Election ends April 30th, and of course the results will go out that night. You can vote by e-ballot, paper ballot, or going through the State Bar homepage. Remember to check your spam filter on the day voting begins, because a lot of those emails get caught in spam. So lots of opportunities to participate and vote, and we're hopeful everyone will take advantage of those. All right, let's talk about the action item today. So for a little bit of background here, we're talking about reverting to the old selection schedule, the old calendar for selection of the candidates. To give you some background, up until 2018, the candidates were confirmed by the board at the January board meeting, not the September board meeting as we've been doing, but the January board meeting. And that pushed the whole process back about 3 months. So we didn't have to start an annual meeting. We could start in the fall. The interviews with the committee occurred in December. The committee made a decision in December. Then it went to the board in January, which of course obviously had the effect of shortening the campaign. It was essentially back then, February was in office and it was a 30-day sprint to the finish line in March. So candidates had the advantage of being able to say yes, knowing that they really only had to spend 30 days away from their families and law practices to do this. Obviously, as a result of our experience in 2017, there was tremendous, the feeling was there was great inequity because The petition candidates were able to start campaigning months and months and months before we even had candidates selected. And so there was not a level playing field there. So two changes were made at that time. The first was to move us to the schedule we're on now, where they're confirmed in September rather than January. The second was to set a September 1 effective start date for petition signatures. So in other words, you couldn't go out a year before and start gathering petition signatures. They had to be dated after September 1st. Those two changes were made. We have not had a petition candidate since. We do not have one this year, but staff and leadership have received a great deal of feedback from lawyers all over the state complaining about the fact that we seem to be in a never-ending campaign cycle now. We swear in one president-elect or one president, and 3 weeks later, we seem to have a candidate walking through our offices, and there seems to be what we'll call a great deal of election fatigue. So in light of the September 1 effective date for petition signatures, I think there's a feeling among the staff and the leadership that probably ensures at least a sufficiently level playing field that we can go back to the old calendar. So in other words, if we confirm in January, perhaps there will be some head start for a petition candidate, but it won't be the months and months and months of head start that we saw before the changes were made in 2018. So to alleviate election fatigue, we are suggesting that we change the board's policy to move that confirmation of candidates back to where it traditionally was throughout most of the history of the bar, to the January board meeting. That also will necessitate a change to the state bar rules, just so everyone understands that. We will have to obtain the Supreme Court's approval for this. Staff have already been engaging in conversations about that preliminarily. We do not anticipate an issue because, frankly, the justices probably have as much election fatigue as any other members of the state bar do. So we don't anticipate any issue there, but it is something to bear in mind. So with that in mind, on behalf of the Nominations and Elections Subcommittee, I move that the Executive Committee approve amendments to the State Bar Board Policy Manual pertaining to the nominations process and campaign period for president-elect candidates as indicated in your materials.
All right, coming from the committee, no second is needed. Any discussion? All directors in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Passes unanimously.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear from Director Forrest Huddleston, and he's going to provide a report on behalf of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to keep it short because I know everybody here loves hearing about the finances, but I am going to keep it decently short today, particularly because we're talking about 8 months of the year. I think once it gets a little bit longer in the year, once we kind of get closer to a full year's results, that's whenever we can do a little bit deeper of a dive. But for right now, given it's just 8 months, I'm going to kind of keep it decently high level because the trends have been very similar to what they have been the last couple of presentations that I've made. So as of January 31st, 2024, which is the 8-month period, the general fund had a net excess of revenues over expenditures and transfers of about $3.3 million. There are a couple of things that drive this typical, similar to what they usually are. Revenues exceeded budgeted revenues, expenditures were lower than budgeted expenditures, and so that's what results in the $3.3 million positive variance for the 8-month period. In your board materials, there are a couple of things outlined for what kind of drives those. I'll give you just a couple of examples here. For the revenues exceeding budgeted revenues, the largest variance was a $744,000 for investment income, which again is very similar to what we've seen due to interest rates. This is really a positive thing for us and won't last forever. And so we're trying to capitalize on this investment income while we can. And then I'll give you a similar example for expenditures. Let me see. The biggest expenditure positive variance is from the Texas Bar CLE in the categories of meeting and conferences and printing and copying. Again, the information on a more detailed level is in your board materials, so I assume everybody is already reviewed that and can reference that again if necessary. The one update that I want to give that's not related to the financials is really more related to the internal audits for the fiscal year 2024. The State Bar has contracted internal auditors, and the audit firm McConnell Jones have completed their audits for 2024. We'll give an update during the April meeting, I believe. Is that right, Tracy? Okay. We'll give an update on the internal audits during the April meeting. But just as a really quick reminder, the 3 divisions that they audited as agreed upon several years ago was the finance division, the communications division, and the investment controls and compliance with the Public Fund Investment Act. So major shout out to our financial team who just abides by controls every day, generally will have positive results in the internal audits. And likewise for the financial team that generally gets positive results in the financial audit as well. Unless there's any other questions, that concludes my report. Thanks, guys.
Any comments from directors? Since I have the microphone, I'll just say so much work goes into that short report. Thank you to everyone who makes it possible.
Nothing to it.
Nothing to it, yeah, all right. We're moving on now to item 11, and on behalf of the DCAP subcommittee, we have Director Robert Toby to give a report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to start my report by just saying thank you to everyone who's already engaged in the effort on the referendum, which is going to be starting in just 11 days. So we're right there. It's going to happen, and I am cautiously optimistic that the bar will be interested in this. I think coupling the referendum with the president-elect elections and the director elections, I think may turn out to be a real blessing. I hope it drives turnout. We've had 36 presentations already involving directors and members of the CDRR, more to come. We've had 2 statewide presentations. I was honored to moderate the one last week on the 13th. We had capped out registration at 1,000. We had about 570 or something that actually tune in. So there's obviously a lot of difference between the number registered and the number who tune in. But yesterday, I think it was capped out with President Tisdale at 1,000, and they had over 660, I think. So really great. And we've got Chair Wooten next week on the 27th to do her deal, and I bet it will again have a large attendance. So we're really pleased with that, and there's opportunity still, and don't feel like it ends on March 31. It's a 30-day voting period, so the more word we can get out even during April, I think will be a very big benefit in terms of vote turnout. So I've got a couple of presentations lined up in April, including one the day before the board meeting, which still leaves about 12 days in the voting period. So those of you who are affiliated with local bars or legal organizations and you want to have a presentation, let Ray know, let me know. We'll get someone from the CDRR to come if we can. If not, I can come maybe. If not, in Board Effect about a week ago, you got the materials, a PowerPoint, talking points. There is nobody in this room who can't, after an hour or 2 of study, go out and do a presentation on these rules. It is not that hard. And I do think people are engaged in it. They're interested. I haven't noticed any sort of adverse comments, the way we did back in 2010 when there was a lot of flack there. So I do think they're being well received. And I do think these rules will be appreciated by the bar in terms of just improving the practice of law for people and improving their ability to practice law within the standard of care. I think these rules really do a good job in helping with that. So I'll leave with that. It's Texas Bar /rules vote for more information. So whenever people have questions, refer them to that. And again, let's just get the word out. Let's make this happen. Let's get the voter turnout up this time. So thanks again, and appreciate everything you've done and will do for this. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Toby. Any comments? All right, the next item on the agenda is item 12, the Public Services and Education Committee and Affordable Legal Services Subcommittee. It's my understanding that we do not have a report for that agenda item. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, Director Smith. That takes us, well done, bravo. Takes us to item 13 on the agenda, which is the section representatives to the board report. I believe we do have one from Director Jerry Bullard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the committee.
Good morning.
Director Smith is a tough act to follow. So I won't be as brief, but I will be brief. Well, I'm happy to report section membership is up by over 1,000 members since our January meeting. According to Sections Department, we're up to 87,312 members. So the face of the bar for many folks continues to attract members, and that's a good thing. Our council of chairs held an in-person meeting in February. There were 51 members that attended that meeting, and during that meeting, there were 2 new nominations for section representatives that were elected by the council of chairs. The small section representative to the board will be Tony Nguyen of Austin. She was nominated by the Asian Pacific Interest Section. And the Women in the Law section nominated Laura Ellis Kugler of Dallas. And of course, she was elected by the chairs. At our annual meeting in June, 33 sections will be hosting CLEs and other events. And so there's also going to be a bringing back of the Hall of Section to the annual meeting. There will be several interactive activities that will be planned to promote sections and increase membership. We continue to thrive in the membership department. We want to get higher. We want everybody to participate. So that concludes my report. So not as brief as Director Smith.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Director Bullard. Any comments? All right, that takes us to agenda item 14, which is a discussion item. We do not have a report today from our Supreme Court liaison, Senior Justice Deborah Lehrman. I do, however, want to recognize and thank General Counsel Nina Hasu, who's here with us today, monitoring what we do. I know this takes time out of a busy schedule, so thank you for being here. All right, next item on the agenda is item 15. This is a discussion for Texas Young Lawyers Association. We have President Laura Pratt to give a report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. It's always my distinct honor to again discuss the activities of the Texas Young Lawyers Association in advance of our full board meeting that's held in April. Much like our other fearless leaders, since our last meeting, I've stayed busy promoting the purpose of TYLA and supporting the mission of the State Bar of Texas across the state and even into other states. And I'd like to just highlight a couple of those for you guys. First, in January, we held our quarterly board meeting in El Paso. And I know I brought that up at our last board meeting, but I only bring it up here to remind everybody that that is our nominations meeting for our executive committee and our president-elect candidates. And thank you all. Big thank you to our past TYLA presidents and chairs that come to that meeting and help us with the nominations process. All of our nominees and their brief bios were actually included in the Texas Bar Journal this month. So if you need a refresher, you want to see the faces of our upcoming bar leaders, I recommend you pull that up and look through that material. And I also want to kind of point out our president-elect candidates this year, Michael Hansen of Richmond and Allison Martinez of Laredo. So hopefully you guys have been seeing some of their activity on social media, or they've made a visit to your district. Please support them in their efforts to connect with lawyers across the state. We're very proud of them. They are excellent leaders, excellent human beings. I cannot say enough good things about them, and I know they are representing TYLA and the State Bar of Texas very well in their campaigns. Also, I wanted to mention Leadership State Bar of Texas held their meeting in Galveston. And I love this program. It's the kind of a pipeline leadership program of the State Bar of Texas. And so we spent the weekend doing rollouts in the community, different community engagement activities. And then they also heard from some exceptional speakers on leadership and leadership, particularly as a lawyer. And it's just an incredible weekend, connecting with and also encouraging these up and coming lawyer leaders for the state bar. And I'm really excited to see where they all plug in, because that's kind of the next phase of this program, is they will be looking at either joining TYLA board, state bar board, or even serving on different committees at the state bar level. And so we're excited to see where all of them land. I want to give you guys just a brief kind of project updates. My hope is in advance of the April meetings, I will actually have a summary sheet that will be included in the board materials that kind of details out all of the projects that we've done this year and kind of gives a summary. That's an effort to kind of just better educate this leadership board and this leadership group on what's available for our lawyers and how we can help them in their practices, and how we can actually better, legal services across the state. So I want to make sure I over communicate in that space so you guys have a good idea of what it actually looks like on paper that TYLA does every year. So we started with about 40 projects. We use this time period, TYLA specifically uses this time period between January and April to kind of finalize projects. So things are coming hard and fast, but I'm really excited that we're going to have a lot of things for you to look through come the April meeting. We've got a great system down now regarding the necessary communication reviews and design periods involved in our projects. I have to give another incredible shout out, how grateful I am to the State Bar of Texas staff for all their assistance in that process. I know we heard about it earlier, but I can't say enough good things because it was a big undertaking. 130 projects is quite a lot. And I'm grateful for everybody that stepped in that review process to help us make sure everything is the way it needs to be before it gets published out to the public and to our membership. This week, our signature project, Adulting, actually will be finalized. So it will be available at www.adulting.tyla.org. So there'll be a link to it on our project page, but then it will have its own standalone. And even while I was sitting here, I was getting updates on just like minor things that we want to amend, but we're really excited that it's going to be going live next week. There will be features on it in the upcoming Texas Bar Journal. So please check those out. And lastly, in regards to our projects, I don't have a final count. I will by April board meeting, but we estimate we've logged almost 3,000 volunteer hours on the TYLA board in advancing the mission of the State Bar of Texas. And so I'm really proud of my team and all the work they've done. April calendar is looking to be very full for me, starting with the national trial competition, which is going to be held in Houston this year. It actually starts the first week of April. So if you know of any Houston attorneys out there, we are always looking for judges. Please let me know. I'll put your name on the list. I think all that being said, I am so proud of my team and the work that they're doing. And I'm always very humbled to represent them in front of you all and the rest of the state. So I'm available for questions, but otherwise, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you for that excellent report. Any comments from directors? I'll just make one comment. I wish I had that adulting presentation about 20 years ago. I'm looking forward to learning how to do this. Okay, item 16, we have a report from our general counsel. No report from our general counsel, Ross Fisher, so that takes us. Oh, and a round of applause for that brief report. Okay, so that now takes us on to a report from our chief legal counsel, Chris Ritter. It is now 10:58 a.m. and the State Bar Board of Directors Executive Committee is going to recess the open meeting and reconvene in closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551.071 for the purpose of consulting with legal counsel regarding Boudreaux v. Louisiana State Bar Association 86 F 4th 620 5th Circuit 2023, Turnbull v. Commission for Lawyer Discipline et al. It's cause number 123 CV 00314 in the Western District of Texas. Washington v. State Bar of Texas et al. Cause number 123 CV 00526 RP, also in the Western District of Texas. Yan v. State Bar of Texas et al. Cause number 423 CV 758 in the Northern District of Texas. Butler v. State Bar of Texas et al. Cause number 423 CV 01070 in the Eastern District of Texas. And legal matters relating to 1415 Lavaca. It is authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551074 to deliberate regarding personnel matters, with the exception of board liaisons and section representatives, board members. All other individuals, including non-essential staff and other guests, need to excuse themselves at this time from the closed session. We will notify the public when we are about 5 minutes out from returning to open session. Thank you.
Always thought you.
It is now 11:08 a.m. and the open session of the Board of Directors Executive Committee meeting will now reconvene. During the closed session, only matters relating to consultation with legal counsel regarding the Boudreaux v. Louisiana State Bar Association, Turnbull v. Commission for Lawyer Discipline et al., Washington v. State Bar of Texas et al., Young v. State Bar of Texas et al., Butler v. State Bar of Texas et al. Litigation, as well as legal matters relating to 1415 Lavaca were discussed. No action was taken in closed session. That takes us to agenda item 18, motion to adjourn. So moved, Director Toby. Is there a second? Second. Director McDonald. Anyone opposed? Any discussion? All right, we are adjourned. And this is 11:09 a.m. for the time of adjournment.